and I believe that they will be widely welcomed.
Questions to the Prime Minister. Question number 1, Sir Michael Shaw.
Mr. Speaker, sir, this morning I presided at a meeting of the Cabinet and had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall be having further meetings later today, including one with Mr. Shevardnadze, the Soviet Foreign Minister.
Sir Michael Shaw.
Mr. Speaker, sir, on this, her last question time of the 1980s, would my right honourable friend reflect on the great progress that has been made during these last 10 years in the well-being of our country and in the new competitive spirit of all our industries? Furthermore, would she reflect on the dramatic and helpful changes that are being made in the rest of the world? And would she look forward and seek to find...
Order! Yes, but briefly, please.
She look forward and seek to find and explain to us the role she sees for her government and for this country in the future.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm grateful to my honourable friend that we have, during this decade, created more jobs than ever before in this country, have higher living standards than ever before, better social services than ever before, and a wider spread of ownership than ever before, and a higher standard of respect in the world than for many a long period. We look forward to the next decade to extend educational opportunity, to increase the training available to young people, to take a leading part in the single market in Europe, and with our staunch defence and our belief in the market economy, I hope and believe we shall be able to give extensive help to those countries in Eastern Europe who are seeking what we have taken for granted for so long.
Neil Kinnock.
Mr. Speaker, when 600,000 people working in the health service are already covered by pay review arrangements, why won't the Prime Minister consider extending a pay review body to 22,000 ambulance staffs?
Mr. Speaker, pay review bodies, as the right honourable gentleman should recall, are given to those who do not go on strike, like the nurses.
Mr. Neil Kinnock.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister knows very well, as she has known for 15 weeks, that ambulance staffs are not on strike.
Order! Order! Mr. Kinnock.
Mr. Speaker, why won't the Prime Minister acknowledge the fact that if she went to arbitration or allowed this dispute to go to arbitration, she could bring it to a speedy and enduring resolution which would ensure that ambulance staffs never went through this experience again? Or is it the case, as millions in this country now believe, that the Prime Minister doesn't want a resolution to this dispute?
Mr. Speaker, as the right honourable gentleman is aware, there are some militant ambulancemen who want to withdraw the emergency service across the country to force through their pay claim. And also, most emergency crews in London from Friday the 15th of December have refused to respond to urgent calls through the 999 service and invited calls direct from the public, which they cannot complete, which they cannot deal with properly. The right honourable gentleman knows that quite generous offers have been made now to ambulancemen, varying from 9 to 16.3%, varying on where they work and the extent of their medical training, from 9% to 16.3%. That is backdated to the 1st of April, And there are therefore now arrears waiting for the ambulancemen to pick them up, varying from £653 to £1,290 arrears waiting for them to claim. And I hope, therefore, that they will consider that that is a reasonable offer and that they will wish to return to work as we would like them to do.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister speaks of ambulance men. Hasn't she heard that the Association of Professional Ambulance Personnel, the kind of organisation that she likes, have turned down her pay offer by a majority of 5 to 1? Doesn't the Prime Minister get the message from that? Because if she doesn't, I do, millions in this country do, and members of her own party do. And it is that urging from the Prime Minister won't resolve the settlement. Arbitration will.
Mr. Speaker, those particular ambulance men voted on a day when the trade union official of the main ambulance men indicated that there might be another offer on the table. That, as the honourable gentleman knows, was a final offer. And there are many people in this country who would think that an offer from 9% to 16.3%, with considerable lump sums waiting to be picked up, would be reasonable. And I would ask the right honourable gentleman to join me in asking the ambulancemen to return to work, and in particular to have the truce over Christmas which was offered to them.
Mr. Michael Marshall.
Will my right honourable friend find time today to welcome the activities of those parts of British industry who are taking an active part in the economic integration of the two Germanys? Does she agree that this kind of stability is the best way to stop people voting with their feet? And will she assure the House that the government will continue to look at opportunities for English language training, for know-how agreements, and other ways in cultural and political exchanges that may further this process?
Mr. Speaker, I think the most important thing as far as East Germany is concerned is to do everything one can to support the setting up of a genuine democracy there with plural parties. That, I think, is the single most important thing, and we shall do all we can to encourage that. We always do all we can to encourage the teaching of English language, and the British Council is very active in that regard, and also its services are greatly in demand. So within the existing arrangements, the existing Warsaw Pact and NATO Pact, within the four-power agreement on Berlin, within the Helsinki arrangement, we shall do everything we can to see that democracy comes to East Germany.
Mr. Paddy Ashdown.
Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister realise that on the issue of Hong Kong, she now faces a moral test of her premiership as great as she faced on the question of the Falkland Islands? Does she realise that the long-term stability of Hong Kong, and indeed the honour of this country, now rests on her finding the courage to face down the bigots on her own backbenches and to ignore the moral bankruptcy and opportunism of the Labour Party?
That's you.
Mr. Speaker, I think that the right honourable gentleman would calm down a little. He would realise that we most certainly have a duty to those Crown servants in Hong Kong who have enabled us and will enable us to carry out British administration right up to 1997, those Crown servants, and also that we have a duty to do everything we can to keep the prosperity of Hong Kong going right up to 1997. And that will mean making special arrangements for some people who are key to keeping that prosperity going. Those are two groups of people, and I hope my right honourable friend, the Foreign Secretary, will be making a statement about the arrangements we propose to make for them tomorrow.
Mr. Richard Tracy.
Speaker, in the 1990s, will my right honourable friend hold out the prospect for the British people of continuing and consistent policies upwards rather than the continual U-turns which seem these days to characterise the Labour opposition?
Mr. Speaker, the policies that have done so consistently well during the 1980s will continue during the 1990s, adding to them, I hope, wider opportunity, wider ownership, better training and all of the foremost lead which this country has taken.
Order! Order! It might help the House if the Prime Minister could speak into that microphone. Dr. David Owen!
Mohan! He was sitting down!
Order! Order! I called Dr. David Owen.
Will the Prime Minister will the Prime Minister make it clear to Mr. Shevardnadze that it does not lie with the Soviet Union to put any veto on a free decision of the people of West Germany and East Germany to unify if they so determine?
Mr. Speaker, but I hope also that the right honourable gentleman will agree that the undertakings that have been made, for example, the Helsinki Final Act, which was signed by 34 nations, and which agrees that there shall be no violation of borders and that they can only be changed by peaceful agreement, and also the four-power arrangement in Berlin, and also the two alliances are the background against which any changes, other changes, must take place.
Andy Stewart.
Once again, the European Commission are threatening our Christmas traditional dinner by banning fresh turkeys. Will my right honourable friend disregard this gobbledygook and ensure that we have fresh turkeys on the menu next Christmas?
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that there will be plenty of fresh turkeys on the menu on British Christmas tables this Christmas, but I'll have a look at the particular point that he raises.
Mr. Ian McCartney.
Which I gave some minutes ago.
McCartney.
Minister, isn't the reality of the last decade under your leadership one of doubling homelessness? And what does she say to the fact that this Christmas 120,000 homeless men, women and children will have no room at the inn under her government?
Mr. Speaker, I would not necessarily accept the honourable gentleman's figures. We have now more than 21,000 hostel bed spaces in London, including over 3,000 emergency and direct access beds in London, of which 200 are vacant sometimes at night. They are not all taken up. And we have, in fact, put another extra 21,000 hostel bed spaces in the rest of England since 1981. We've allocated £250 million for more provision for those who are homeless over the next 2 years. And of course, as the honourable member is aware, in Great Britain there are now 2 million more houses than there were 10 years ago.
Mr. Maxwell Hislop.
Is my right honourable friend aware that the Ombudsman has refused to release his report to the House until 3:30 today, and that many members want to read that report before the Secretary of State makes his statement? Can she find time, as soon as this question time ends, to ask her right honourable friend to seek Mr. Speaker's permission to delay his statement until 7 o'clock tonight, so that members can have time to read the report before he makes his statement?
Mr. Speaker, the time of the production of the report is a matter for the Ombudsman, and I think the other thing may be a matter for Mr. Speaker. My recollection, subject to your guidance, Mr. Speaker, is that there is a private notice question first, which will come on before a statement made about Barlow Clouds.
Mr. Keith Bradley.
Gentleman, to reply which I gave some moments ago.
Prime Minister, as a pensioner, you'll be aware that one of your achievements of the last 10 years has been to cut the real value of pensions to elderly people. In this season of goodwill, wouldn't it be a good idea to announce today a substantial increase in retirement pensions so that all our elderly people can enjoy a happier and healthier 1990?
No, Mr. Speaker, the value of pensioners to elderly people has not been cut. The promise The promise, in fact, to protect pensions against price increases has been honoured, and the poorer pensioners, as the honourable member will be aware, have recently had an increase. Indeed, in October, an extra £3.50 a week to old and needy pensioner couples was given on top of their pension. They'll also be aware that this autumn we abolish the earnings rule for pensioners at a cost of some £375 million, and we've also given a good deal of help, extra help for the disabled and for the war widows. It is a very, very good record, and he will remember that his government could not honour the inflation proofing of pensions, and also that they cancelled the Christmas bonus twice.
Private notice question.